So James, last question I'm going to direct to yourself, and it's around takeaways for our audience on some of the guiding principles for a successful MDF program, as is with the title of the webinar. So I wouldn't mind, James, if from your side of things, you've done a lot of these. It'd be great for you to share some insights on what you've learned and what you think would be useful to recommend to our audience.
Yeah, sure. Conscious of time, and there's probably a lot to run through, but I'll try and keep it brief. So we've touched on quite a few of these points already. I think it makes sense to ensure that you've got a clearly defined strategy, a corporate strategy at the heart of it, and you look at the programs and initiatives that are going to support that. And you also, Ryan spoke a lot about internal lines of communication. That's really important between the different sort of stakeholders, but it's also, as Michele was saying, really important to include the partners at the heart of that as well. You want to create a program that has got partner experience at the core, at the heart of it. Once you've got a clear idea of that, then think about the activities and what you're going to allow partners to use those allocated funds to do. Look at where you are seeing success. Review your competitors' programs. Look at what is being successful elsewhere, and again, include your partners in those conversations. They're all working with lots of vendors. They're right on the on the edge, in the trenches, so to speak. Get feedback and ideas from them as well. Really encourage that dialogue to build a successful program. Make it simple for your partners to engage with you, make it enjoyable, and ultimately create something that's going to have impact on your partner's business as well as yours. Systems, absolutely key. You can have fantastic programs, fantastic ideas, but if it's really difficult to manage, it's really difficult to actually measure performance, and that data is really, really key. You need that data to be able to analyze what's working and what isn't, to be able to feed that back into the program to make well-informed decisions to influence success. And I think treat your partners as an extension to your business. I think something we've not touched on so far, but is something worth considering, is consider partner enablement, but specifically for marketeers. If you look at a lot of your partners' businesses, they don't normally have huge marketing teams or lots of in-house expertise. Yes, give them programs where there's marketing concierge services, but do invest in them as well. Help them to understand how to be more effective at running marketing campaigns, how to be more effective at managing pipeline and progressing it from a marketing perspective, using some of all the exciting tools and technologies that are cropping up nowadays. Educate them more on how to use digital effectively as part of that overall strategy. So I do think there should also be an emphasis on that education and enablement piece, just like vendors tend to focus a lot of effort on training and enabling technical members of a partner's organization. The same with sales. Don't forget marketeers as well. And then just one last point, and I think it's something that we've been doing a lot of work with recently, is yes, lead generation is important, but also do look at how you can support partners with lead nurture and lead progression. The amount of times we've been involved in conversations where vendors have said, we're generating lots of leads, but they seem to be sticking, or they're stuck. We're having trouble with momentum, really sort of taking them through to closure. And I think that's something, again, that as part of your overall strategy with an MDF program, do consider how you can support partners with lead nurture as much as you focus on lead generation.
Yeah.
We call those points there, Kenneth, but hopefully that's...
there is, and it's a really interesting snippet, if it's just to play that back, there's a lot in there, and a lot of it is really good advice. The two things I would take away from it there, James, just off the top of my head is, make it easy, and making it easy sometimes is hard, right? But if you don't make it easy for the partners, they're not going to engage, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing you said there that's really interesting, and I don't think people do enough of it, is as you said, you know, you spend a lot of time and money investing in getting partners trained on your products, you know, pre-sales, post-sales training, all of that kind of good stuff, but very little on training them on marketing. And a lot of these partners aren't marketing savvy, right? You know, the bigger ones are, they're big as most companies, but the smaller ones aren't, and they need that support. So I think, you know, people should keep those kinds of points in mind when you do an MDF program. Otherwise, you're not going to get the, you know, you're spending a lot of dollars and you're not going to get return on that. Okay, so just very quickly before we move to poll results and Q&A, very last, in less than a minute, Ryan, if you had one piece of advice to share with someone trying to launch or update their MDF program, what would it be? You might be on mute, Ryan. That was great advice, though.
Right, yeah, that's the best I've got. I think it follows up from what you were saying, Kenneth, about the simplicity, but I think alongside the simplicity, it's about balance, because you've got to think about how can you best balance and get an effective view of what you're investing and balance that with the effort that's required from the partner or the distributor. So it's quite easy to go and build an MDF program that's got lots of requirements, you know, for a partner to actually put in a request and claim. So we're doing a big overhaul right now and a lot of simplification of what we're asking for. And I think linked to that, something we were talking about earlier, in terms of simplicity, we're trying to move towards measuring results ourselves. So we, as part of that effort of not only making it simpler for the partner, but also giving ourselves some consistency of reporting internally, we're less and less asking partners to give us results, numbers of this, numbers of that, how many did you do, what happened, etc. We may ask them for some data, like who did you engage in this activity, and then using that data, we can feed it into our systems, and we can, through an attribution model, we can determine return on investment, but that gives us a consistent model. So it's quite easy, going back to the point of the activities earlier, you might have 30 different types of activities, but you don't really want 30 or 60 different metrics. You can usually boil that down to, you know, maybe 4, 5, 6 metrics across all those different types of activities. So simplicity and balance, I think.
Okay, super. And James, in your experience, what's the most common reasons MDF programs fail to deliver?
It's a good question. I think often it's because partners haven't been you know, built in right at the core. I think sometimes it's easy to focus on your own objectives and priorities. Absolutely, you know, that is important, but there are two parties in this relationship. There's the vendor and there's the partner community, and you want to find something that is mutually beneficial and where, you know, both parties are you know, bringing expertise and value, and partners can absolutely do that if you engage with them in the right way. Give them a voice, enable them to have some input in terms of program design, ways that things could be improved, and sharing ideas and success.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. You know, in every partnership, both parties must succeed, or it's not a partnership. So, and last but not least, Michele, as a channel veteran and MDF expert, what would be your one piece of advice to MDF program owners?
I would say prioritize and focus. Don't overstretch the MDF dollars and resources. I think what's more important is to prioritize your objectives and activities that will bring the best outcomes. Then stay focused on those objectives and execution to bring the best return. And I like what James mentioned earlier, right? It's not about every quarter doing something new or doing more, but also look at what you have done before and how those leads or those you know, contacts have progressed, and try to continue to nurture those activities that you have done previously and those outcomes that were derived from those activities.